Running a marathon is special, not to mention a major on home turf, and that's exactly what I did 4 days ago.
Yeah, 56,000 people finished the 2025 London Marathon. It's amazing and it's a world record, and every one of those runners has a story to tell.
Yeah, it was a brutal day, honestly, and for me and so many others on the course, it didn't quite go as planned.
So I didn't run the marathon this weekend, but I've been looking into some of the reasons why some people may have struggled. And I want to hear more about Mo's experiences, because I've run good marathons before and I've run bad marathons. And I think a lot of the things we're going to talk about today are going to be really relatable for a lot of runners.
So yeah, let's get back on the course. I can't lie though, my legs are quite sore from the weekend just gone.
Don't worry, this time we've got air conditioning and we've called in some help. There we go. So Mo, you've got your medal, but I want to go all the way back to the beginning because we're on the start line of the London Marathon right now. So take me through everything before the race.
Well, it looks very different being on the start line today than it was like a few days ago. Obviously it's super quiet compared to what it was.
But was there a grandstand here?
Yeah, there was literally a grandstand. It's just so much nervous energy, but also excited energy. I had a bomber jacket and a hoodie, thinking, oh cool, it's going to be kind of cold. You know that wait in the start line's kind of cold. Immediately took that off as soon as I got here. I was
so just hot.
I was toasty at like 8 a.m, which was kind of playing in my head a little bit. It's like, okay, cool. If it feels like this already, how's it going to feel once it gets to 9:30 when the sun actually breaks through the clouds? So immediately from the jump, I was like, okay, I'm going to switch my plans just a little bit, just to see if I can bank time. I know you shouldn't, and we always say don't try and bank time, but in my head the strategy made sense. You know, you go out a bit hotter than you would normally, but you're avoiding most of the heat. So I was like, if I just go out, bank time, and then try and just hold on for dear life around kilometer 30, because I knew that's when, in my head, it would get really hard. But if I'd made up enough time, it'd be good. And that was my strategy, basically.
How do you feel about that strategy now?
In hindsight, I know that I let the weather get into my head, and I should have stuck to what I know and go for that negative split. You really will never ever be able to predict how you're going to feel at 30k, so try and hold back as much as you can, and then if you have energy at 30, kick more. Like, you're always better off reserving yourself and then kicking than trying to go out too quick and then seeing or hoping that you're going to feel okay to even cross the line. Because there were points in that race, and I'll get onto that a bit later, but there were points in that race where I genuinely didn't see myself crossing the line because I just didn't think I had it in me. Like, it was so tough.
How did you sort of deal with the mental resilience that you needed for a race like this?
I think a lot of it came down to my training. A lot of the training I'd done was mental. It was trying to push through those reps that really sucked, because I knew there was going to be a point in the marathon that really sucked. And if I stopped during the workouts, I'd carry that forward. I've said it before, I'd carry that forward and stop during the marathon. So every single time I felt like, okay, cool, just stop. I was like, okay, at least get to the next kilometer mark and then assess how you feel. Get to the next kilometer mark. And I kept doing that for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 kilometers.
Things are looking a bit different today. Obviously, we're in a car on the way, but talk us through the first 10k. Like, the idea of a positive split, like, intentionally is mad. So I kind of want to hear a bit about that and a bit about sort of what it was like to do the Greenwich, through Woolwich and towards Cutty Sark.
That's the thing with a positive split as well. It all goes so well when it's going well. And I think the first 10k, I was like absolutely flying. Yeah. So in my head, it was just me and there was like 4 people in front of me. I was like, the roads are empty. This is perfect. I can hug the blue line. Fantastic. We're going downhill. I'm cruising 10 seconds quicker than marathon pace. So I'm going down the first 5k, and then you turn that corner and then all the different start points start to merge. And in my head, it was like, okay, cool. This is where I'm going to see some of my friends. About 7, 8k just before we get to like Cutty Sark, one of my friends passes me, and he's someone that we normally run at the same pace, but he just flew by me. I was like, okay, cool. He's clearly doing a positive split too, but he's like going aggressive with it. Little did I know that he was going to finish it in a phenomenal time and completely blew like my goal time, his goal time, and all PBs out the water. But when I initially saw him, I was like, okay, let me just speed up a little bit to try and catch up to him. So I went even faster, and then I realized he was just holding a pace that was just way too quick to even make sense for me. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll ease off. But the plan was always to at least go the first 5 quicker, because it was downhill. So I was like, once I finish the first 5, I'll ease off for the next 5. But because I felt so good and strong after the first 5, I was like, let me just hold this pace. And then coming into Cutty Sark, which is like one of the most iconic moments of London.
Do the crowds help you coming through here?
Oh my God, yeah. The crowd this year was the best crowd I've ever had in any race, ever.
Wow.
Like, it was just the most unbelievable. I don't know how to explain the London energy on the day. If you weren't there, there is nothing I can say to put into words to describe how it felt. Unbelievable. And
people, like we said, it was a tough day for a lot of people. It was a hot day, and we still had a world record number of finishers. So 56,640 finishers, so many people. And those crowds are going to be an enormous part of what helped those people get through to the finish line.
Oh, 100%. Like, I think people are so motivated by like other people screaming at them and just getting the support off of absolute strangers that just kind of either understand what you're currently going through or just want to be there to see you put on a show, basically. Like, a lot of people changed their goals and they just decided to not go for a time. And some people, this was their first marathon, so no matter what time they crossed the line, it was going to be a PB. And I think Ashley, our fellow presenter, is in that same boat, and I heard she had an amazing race.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of runners after the race, they come down, they just don't feel right.
Yeah.
Maybe you pick up some illness or a bug, and it happens to so many people at the end of the race, and so that's why I'm sitting in her place instead while she's not here.
Yeah, no, it happens to the best of us. Like, a marathon will compromise your immune system, so I hope she gets better soon.
So what I'm like, I wanted to look into some of the stats, so I've been digging into the numbers of the London and Manchester and Boston marathons because I wanted to sort of see how runners have fared. I think one interesting fact is from Boston Marathon, the average finish time this year compared to last year was 10 minutes faster. Boston this year had great weather. Boston last year, and I ran that race, was really hot.
Yeah.
Hot weather produces slower times, typically. So I wanted to see the London-Manchester comparison. So for Manchester last year, the average male finish time was 4:03. This year was 4:16.
Wow.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, 13 minutes.
And the females is exactly the same ratio. So 4:37 last year, 4:53 this year. So it's a really big jump in finish times. And London, I think one interesting stat for me is looking at the number of maybe sub 3 finishers compared to finishers over 5 hours. And in London last year, 7% of finishers were under 3 and 28% were over 5. This year, only 5% were under 3 and 35% were over 5.
That's crazy.
So it really shows you that the conditions affected all runners, and that's just a percentage as well. So it's representative of the whole field.
Like, there is no denying the stats and the fact that the heat does affect people, but I also think course record is broken, and for me it was probably broken not because the heat made someone slower, but it's because the vast majority of people had just never trained in the heat or haven't acclimatized to the heat, whereas the elites who kind of specifically only train in the heat or exclusively wouldn't have been affected as much. So for me, when I say I can't blame the heat on my performance, rather my lack of prep for the heat on my performance, it allows me to take ownership back. It allows me to point the finger at me and allows me to then take something away from that I can change for next year. Because if I just blame the heat and I don't use that information to do anything next year, if next year's just as hot, I'm back in the same boat. So I like to always try and think, what can I take away, learn from, and how can I adjust or readjust my plan next year to make sure that I give myself the best possible fighting chance at getting the championship time that I want to get.
I think one of the most important things about any performance is reflecting on positives. So regardless of the time that you run, and a lot of people had incredible races. You had kind of objectively a brilliant run. For those who didn't, I think it's really important to take the time to work out what was good, but then also what you can learn from it. Like, what would you do different next time, like, to be able to come back and be that bit stronger?
I always say as well, like, finish lines, not finish times. Like, the fact that you even crossed the line when so many people might not have, or so many people wouldn't have even thought to run a marathon, and you've run one of the greatest marathons in the world, and like currently as it stands, the biggest marathon in the world. All the medals look exactly the same, regardless of what time you cross that line. So like, that's something to always take away from a marathon as well, is that the reason I love the sport so much is because you can finish 40,000th in a race, you still get a medal. You still feel over the moon and elated that you've crossed that finish line. You still get just as much support as anyone else on that course. And that's what I think I love about long distance running in general, the running community, it's the fact that every step is worth celebrating.
The determination that it takes each individual person, whether you've done it in 7 hours or 2 hours,
Yeah.
it takes the same amount of determination and same amount of effort to kind of get through that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you could even argue that it was so much harder for the people that were doing it 7 hours because they were out in the heat for so much longer. The start time from some people was 11:30. I know Ash started at like 11 o'clock. I was well into 10, 20K by that point, and I was already feeling the heat. So I can only imagine how she must have felt.
So we're coming up on Tower Bridge now, which is probably the most iconic part of the London Marathon. I absolutely love this part. I think there's no other sporting experience that normal people can have that feels quite like running over Tower Bridge during the London Marathon.
I completely agree. I think because I've run New York as well, and obviously there's no crowd on the bridges, whereas you compare it to London where like it feels like 90% of the crowd is just on Tower Bridge. It's it makes you feel like you're crossing the line a bit too early. Once you get to Tower Bridge, there's no protection from the sun at that point. You're just beaming down. But it was still like one of the most unbelievable parts of the course, and one of the most memorable for me parts of the course was crossing that bridge and just getting cheered at by, I want to say, it felt like hundreds of thousands of people. It wasn't, but that's what it felt like.
How are you physically feeling at this point in the race?
Starting to struggle a bit. I came in on the first half as my third quickest half marathon, which is never a good sign, meaning I was 4 minutes ahead of time that I banked, which should never be the case. How did you feel coming across Tower Bridge?
I loved it, absolutely loved it. The first time I did London was the first sort of big marathon I'd done, and I'd never experienced anything like it. The feeling of having just thousands of people cheering for you and cheering your name, such a phenomenal thing to have experienced.
And I mean, like Tower Bridge, even on a day when the marathon isn't on, you can see how busy it is. So
yeah.
Can you imagine this on?
It's so iconic as well. Like just look either side of where we are. You've got the Tower of London over there, but then you've also got like the Shard in the background.
Yeah. I'm so glad we're turning left right now rather than right, because heading towards Canary Wharf was where things started to go wrong. So by the time I got to 32K, and despite seeing some of the best run crews and like some of my closest friends on the course, I couldn't feel the joy I wanted to feel because of the amount of pain I was in. Ashley's run club is at Limehouse, kilometre 32, and I thought seeing them would like change the trajectory of my marathon, and I get a second wind, and I was hoping and praying that second wind would come. It just didn't come, and that's okay.
How are you dealing with it as it comes along? Because to me, if I'm having a tough race, and it might be a cliche, but I'm very much like run the mile you're in. Like I've got through really tough races just by trying to break it down into smaller sections.
Yeah.
Like if you're worried at halfway about what's coming at mile 25, you're in real big trouble.
Yeah, and I think one of the hardest things in a race is, especially down this road where you're about to go into a tunnel and then hit an uphill, when the last thing you want to do is hit an uphill. Getting into Blackfriars, you basically say bye to everyone and you're just with your demons for about half a kilometre. And it was at that point I was like, no one is watching me. I can stop. Like I need to stop. I didn't have 20 seconds to spare. I was like, I can't stop. Let me just get to the crowd again. I turned off my music. It was just pure grit in this section. And when it's just you and one other runner for like the next 400, 500, 600 meters and there's no crowd, it actually gets really lonely. So this little stretch there was tough. And then we hit this uphill, started seeing people again, and I was like, okay, cool. I need to hit this second wind. I need to hit a second wind. I think anyone that saw me on this road would see that I was really struggling. And this is where I knew I was going to see the majority of people I knew. I mean, I high-fived way too many people in the first half of the race, and I regret it because I wish I'd saved some of my sticking my hand out energy for this part of the race, because some of my closest friends were on this home stretch and my family were on this home stretch, and I actually just didn't see them because I was in so much pain. But the ones I did see were the Running Channel Club. They were impossible to miss. And they were just right here, literally just here, right here, outside of Bankman Station. And I remember I saw Andy and I saw Stevie, and they were just screaming at me. And when you see a crowd of people, but you can pick out a couple of faces. Honestly though, passing the club here and the cheer squad was one of the best and the highlights of my marathon experience. So if you wanted to take on your own marathon, or if you just wanted to train for something and find some like-minded people within the running space, then the club is the perfect place to do it. You don't have to do it alone. So check the link in the bio if you want to find out more.
Yeah, I was down at the cheer zone and you see so many people coming through there struggling, but then also so many people who are seeing friends and family and they're embracing people, and they're laughing, they're crying, but then you come up and you make this right turn and you know that you're so close, and there people start to rally and they're like, okay, I've got this now, like I can almost see the finish line.
People forget how long this road actually is.
Yeah.
Once you turn the corner and you see Big Ben, in your head the race is over, but a kilometre is a long way,
like
especially tacked on at the end of a marathon. You're still running for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes sometimes. It's only when you really turn that corner and you see Buckingham Palace on your left and you can actually see the finish line, that's when like all the feelings just come flooding. It's not when you cross the line, it's when you see the finish line. And it's like, okay, cool, I've got 200 meters to go. And I've done it, Like, I can imagine how Ashley would have felt crossing this, and it's like, she just ran a marathon. Like, I know you still probably remember your first marathon and the first time you saw that first finish line. How do you remember seeing your first finish line?
I think it's relief as much as anything else, because you know you're struggling and like I've managed to do this and I've managed to get to this point. You're trying to take in the crowds, but you're also trying just to not fall over.
Yeah.
Like there's so many emotions and it's so hard to just sort of pull yourself together and keep yourself going.
That crossing that finish line was the hardest, but also probably one of the proudest moments of my life.
We just made the final turn into the finish line. So what's it feel like to be back on the mall now?
In a car, very nice. But I do feel like I'm not done with this course just yet. I feel like the job's not done. I have to come back and see them all once again.
But how are you feeling now after the race? Because it's a few days later, how's your body and mind recovering and dealing and processing with a marathon?
I think no matter what time you do a marathon in, it is emotionally draining. Like there is a lot of emotions you feel, both good and bad, no matter how the marathon goes. The sheer fact that those emotions are so high and does take its toll emotionally on you. I did say I was disappointed crossing that line, but I'm not. I'm not disappointed at all. I'm over the moon with how I performed, and lessons are learned, and I can only feel hungry and charged up for the next one. With that being said, my legs and body aren't ready to take on the training for the next one just yet. It's all about giving yourself the time to relax after a marathon, let your body recover, and then think about how you want to approach the next one, or even if you even want to approach the next one. Like one and done is a perfectly adequate way of approaching a marathon. And if you want to see the last time I was down on this mall, crossing this finish line, where I paced one of our other presenters, Sarah, to her London Marathon finish in 2024, then make sure you watch the video on screen now.